Welcome back. Welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us for episode 3 of a Child Rights Series 2025. I'm Winsome, your moderator for this forum, and it is always a pleasure to share space with you here. Our theme for this forum, Hear the Voices of Our Children, We Have Rights Too, highlights the importance of recognizing and upholding children's rights. In this episode, we're going to be exploring General Comment 7, which is a critical framework from the United Nations that embraces or reinforces rather young children's rights to education, protection, and development. And if you were on last Thursday, you would know that we're talking about safety and protection of our children. So this basically is a continuation, even though it's a different series. So our discussion will be centered around not just Jamaica, but the region, like the CARICOM region. And we're honored to have with us our distinguished panelists of experts joining us, Professor Aldry Henry Lee, Pro-Vice Chancellor, Graduate Studies and Research at UA Mona, renowned researcher in child rights and social development. Welcome, Aldry.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone.
All right. We also have joining us, no stranger. She started out this series with us, Dr. Rebecca Tartello, education specialist at UNICEF. Welcome back, Rebecca.
Thank you. Nice to be back. Good evening, everyone.
So, and rounding out this awesome panel, we have Professor Zoya Kincaid-Clark, no stranger to the ECC space, senior lecturer and researcher at UA Mona, our early childhood care and education specialist. Welcome back, Zoya. Zoya was on from, but it seems so long ago, 2022, right?
2022. Good afternoon, everyone, and good evening, everyone.
All right, amazing. So already, as is customary in the ECC space, and why am I having that here? No, this is what we're doing this evening. All right, so let's see who we have here. We have Barbara Williams, Zone 48, Region 6 already on. Kitson Town. We have Francis, Marlene Green, Kyla Saunders. All right. So we have representatives from all over tuning in, and we're looking forward to the others. Normally we have representation from across the island, but I'm supposing that we're going to have some from the Caribbean as well. So let's get right into the discussion. And as always, this is the early childhood education sector, so we are going to be laying the foundation before we get deeper into the meat of the matter. So Rebecca, what are the key principles of UNESCO's General Comment 7, and how do they shape early childhood education policies and practices in Jamaica and the region?
Okay, so General Comment 7 actually is issued by the Committee on the Rights of the Child, and it was issued in 2005, which is 20 years ago now. It's hard to believe, actually. And it focuses on implementing the right of children to have their best interests. So when governments are enacting laws and policies, the best interests of the child are to be at the heart of all that is done, and it emphasizes the importance of nurturing environments for young children, and therefore it underscores and emphasizes the critical role of early childhood care, development, and education. So basically, General Comment 7 sees early childhood as a critical stage. It realizes and recognizes just how important early childhood is for brain development and how much it lays the foundation for future learning and overall health and well-being. So it makes a case for investing seriously and thoughtfully in early childhood services, trying to strive for high quality care and education right from the start. So, sometimes you hear the phrase start them right from the start. So General Comment 7 is right in line with that. It obviously also highlights the right to education of all children, how important the role of the family, community, and school are, and how important it is that all three of them work together, and that they reinforce positive physical, emotional, and cognitive development. It also underscores and points out the role of the state and says that the state or the government is responsible for ensuring that the rights of young children are upheld. And that includes, accessible, affordable, quality services, health and education, nutrition, early stimulation, parenting programming. So it's a comprehensive approach that looks at early childhood development holistically and makes a case for recognizing and building on the intersectionality between health, education, and social protection. So it calls for an integrated approach. And that really is what the Early Childhood Commission is. That was how the Early Childhood Commission was conceptualized. It's a multi-sectoral agency, and the members of the board of the commission represent the various line ministries that under which child's rights and children's issues fall. So Ministry of Health, Ministry of Education, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Labor and Social Security are represented at a very high level on the commission. It's either the permanent secretary or his or her nominee. And then there are a number of nominees to the board of the commission that the Minister of Education has the authority to make, and he or she usually chooses to pick persons who represent civil society in various different contexts so that the commission itself can have a broad approach and a well thought out approach to issues that affect the nation's children. And of course, the commission was created with an act in the same year, 2005, and the act has sets out all that the commission is to do in terms of helping to regulate this sector, reporting to the minister, working on making sure that the early childhood standards are in place. So it's a regulatory body. It inspects schools, and it set out those 12 standards, all of which are very much in line with General Comment 7 and focus on making sure our children are safe, secure, there are no public health violations in the schools where they're attending, and that they are able to access as best as possible quality early childhood education and development opportunities in an as equitable a manner as possible. So the standardization of the act and the standards means that we were trying to, as a nation, lift the level of quality across the island because we have such high rates of attendance. We're not a country that where we're struggling to ask our parents to send our children to school or out to school for at least a few hours a day. Our parents do that. They do it from age 3. They do it from even younger. And General Comment 7 was followed, I don't remember the exact year, but maybe 15 years later, with the Survive and Thrive focus, which is the focus on the first 1,000 days, which led to the establishment of the Brain Builder Centers, which are working hand in hand with the Early Childhood National Strategic Plan implementation, which is what guides the work of the ECC. But in all of that work, the welfare and the well-being of the child is central.
Amazing foundation there. Look at that. And now that we understand the framework, I trust that you all understand. But if you don't get it as yet, not to worry. The recording will remain so you can go back and replay. Let's explore Jamaica's progress. It's been some time now since all of this came into effect. So, Audrey, what strides has Jamaica made in implementing these principles, and what best practices have emerged from all of that?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Rebecca would have started in terms of the progress that has been made. There has been much legislative advancement. In fact, even before 2005, when the comment was established or formulated, we had the Early Childhood Commission, which was established through the Early Childhood Act of 2003. And then we have the Child Care and Protection Act of 2004. And we have had some very strong legislative advancement. Even the Disability Act that we had passed helps us to keep to that principle of non-discrimination, of ensuring that all children, whatever their ability, wherever they are able to access good quality early childhood education. So the ECC, the Early Childhood Commission, has done a lot of work. I know they have the constraints in terms of finance, in terms of infrastructure, in terms of human resources, but they have been able to establish standards by which our institutions can provide child-centered education and ensure that we adhere to all children's rights. They have also been able to help with the development of national strategic plan for early childhood education. I think they've had two. The last one I saw was 2023, but I did speak with the ladies at ECC, and they tell me they already have a draft for up to 2028. So they have been able to formulate comprehensive plans which focus on child health, parenting. There's a lot of focus on parenting for the comment, for us to be able to have effective and good quality childhood education. We have to involve the parent. We have to have a holistic development, all aspects of the child's life, emotional, physical, mental. We have to have the community involved. The integration of services has taken place, as Rebecca would have said, where we have not only private sector, but public sector and our communities coming together to provide the foundation and provide the services for early childhood education. I think too, we have made good progress in Jamaica and throughout the Caribbean in raising awareness of children's rights and ensuring that persons understand what the Convention on the Rights of the Child is all about. And that is a very key convention, which we know was adopted in 1989, and which sets out principles of participation, provision, and protection, ensuring that all our children everywhere, in whatever their disability, their sex, their political orientation, their resident, will have a good quality of life. So a lot of progress has been made. There's much more to be done, but I think Jamaica can be quite proud in the progress they have made in implementing the principles of the General Comment number 7. Thank you.
Thank you. A lot of strides indeed. But with all those strides you mentioned, Audrey, there are challenges because in the midst of it, and that's how you see the opportunities, right? When the challenges come up, we look for the opportunities. So Zoya, let's hear from you some of the major challenges policy-wise where policymakers and educators are concerned. What are some of the challenges that they have faced and how have they been able to address those?
Well, that's actually a very good question. We know that, as Alri said, we've made a lot of strides, but we understand that given our circumstances, that there are some challenges that a number of children face. A big part of it, for instance, has to do with issues pertaining to poverty, issues pertaining to polyvictimization, issues pertaining to a number of adversities children face. Likewise, though we have made strides in terms of training and educating our teachers, it still remains that many teachers, there are some teachers who do not understand or appreciate or recognize child rights and how to infuse that in their everyday practice in the classroom context. Another thing we can think about is when we look at some of the policy decisions that we make, we recognize that there are some children who are not necessarily focused on. And I'll give you an example. So if we think about PATH, which is a conditional disbursement fund, which is aimed at supporting persons who are the most vulnerable in society, what we realize is that if we see General Comment 7 as an opportunity to equalize and level the platform that all children experience, that all children have a good, high quality start, that they have access to, all children have access to their rights. We can look at some of the challenges. So I'll give you a perfect example. I've mentioned this many times. If we look at PATH, for instance, so in Jamaica is classified as a middle income country. And given this nature, though we don't have any concrete data, we have upwards data will tell us of up to 25% of each birth cohort has some form of a disability. And though we have the Disabilities Act, we also can appreciate that early intervention is critical. And we have not made provisions for children with disabilities to be able to access the kinds of intervention that are necessary and needed. And so what it means is that there's a subset of children who, despite General Comment 7, all their rights are not necessarily going to be fulfilled or actualized because of the very nature of where they are developmentally. So it speaks to, for instance, I always say it would be wonderful if children could be able to access path, to be able to access some of the support, the early interventional supports that are needed, applied behavior analysis, speech therapy. Those are costly things that can level the playing field and give them a strong start. So it speaks to making those connections, looking at what are some of those gaps and building and making those connections to support children. So we know as well that teacher education is something that we continue to work on. The Early Childhood Commission must be commended for initiatives such as this that we're presenting on today. But it really speaks about how we can include some of these in other areas to ensure that all children have access. So teacher training, continuous professional development for teachers, professional development for parents that specifically focus on issues such as this. And I do know that the ECC must be commended for the publication of the book that was done on child rights, but just to make sure that we do this on a continuous basis so that all parents, if they missed it once, they have an opportunity to learn from it the second time or the third time or fourth time around.
Amazing. Anything else that we need to identify, Audrey, Rebecca?
I would like to pick up on something Zoya said, which is the issue we have with our children with disabilities. So for the first time, we were able to gather data on children with disabilities. UNICEF runs in many countries around the world, we run a household survey, which is called a multiple indicator cluster survey. And we ran it in the last few years in partnership with Statin. The IDB and a few others came together to help us to do this. We trained young people to go house to house and collect the data. And one of the data sets was developed by a group called the Washington Group. And it is a particular set that focuses on data for children with disabilities. And that data now is the first, I believe it's really the first national data set that we have that's disaggregated. So we're learning more and more about our children with disabilities, because as Zoya was quoting some statistics, we use very big, broad statistics because we just did not have the proper data. What we do know is that more and more of our schools are developed and teachers are taking them. I'll give you an example. One is I'm not going to have the correct name, and Nicole at the ECC always gets upset at me because I always get the name of this course wrong. It's something like inclusive education or inclusive early childhood education. And it's a play-based course to basic information for the practitioner on the different types of therapies that are out there. Zoya mentioned speech motivational therapy would be another one, art therapy, play therapy, music therapy. And while it doesn't make any of the participants, entirely experts at any of these therapies, it gives you a sense of some of them, and it works also with another program that was developed by Professor Sams Vaughan and the team at UWI's Department of Child Health, which is called the Child Development Therapist Program, which we are find a home for and be able to offer to persons, not just in Jamaica, but through, now that technology makes things a lot easier to access, through the region. So the inclusive special ed course is currently offered only in Jamaica, but it has potential to go beyond that. And last year, I think they began to run the current course late December last year or sometime in December. And they had 2,000 practitioners try to sign up to take the course when there's only 120 spaces, because it has to be moderated and it includes a play-based approach. So it helps practitioners to identify the particular challenge that the child might be facing, what disability signs might be apparent, and then gives the practitioner some strategies of how to make adaptive teaching materials to use in their classrooms, and then recommendations to refer the children. Similarly, the Early Childhood Commission has been working for many years on an early screening, identification, and referral pathway, because when you screen children, you have to be able to refer the children for support. And so all of our children are assessed at age 4 by their classroom teacher. It's a checklist. The children are not taking a test at age 4. Please do not misunderstand me. They're not sitting down and taking a test. They're just observed in their day-to-day goings on in their classroom by their teacher. And then based on that cutoff score, the children are then sent, if they need to be, for a more detailed diagnostic test, which is called the Ages and Stages Questionnaire, which has been adapted for Jamaica, so ASQJ. And that is done with the parent and involves assessment of gross fine motor skills as well as cognitive development and different domains of learning. And then based on that score, the children are given an individual learning support plan that is specific to the challenge that has emerged based on the data. And the teacher at the age 5 level is encouraged by the education development officers to work with those children as best as they can. Now, this doesn't work equally across the board, but we're moving in the right direction. And UNICEF has been involved in all of this, which is why I can speak the way I'm speaking about it, because I know about it. But there's going to the ESIR pathway will be made public shortly. And we're designing like a 1-page, easy to follow diagram that talks about the different ways that families can access help if you have a young child with disability. But as Audrey said, we've made a lot of progress. We have a longer way to go. We want to be in a situation where we can do better assessment of our children at birth. Right now at birth, our children, we do an APGAR score, but we don't test. That's it. We're not testing hearing or anything else, the stem blood or cord, what is it called? The cord blood.
We test for sickle cell as well.
Yeah, we test for sickle cell. We test for sickle cell and we test APGAR scores. But with other countries do more. With the cord blood and with other basic assessments. And it involves training people. It involves placing people in the very busy delivery room setting. So, it's very simple to say we should be doing this. And then it's another thing to actually make it a reality. But we're moving towards that because we know the earlier we can identify any particular challenges, the faster we can address them, the better the outcome for the child and the family. And the school system would be better equipped to support. So it's a work in progress. And all of that has to do with General Comment 7 and putting the child, at the center of all of the work that we're doing, because what we're doing for every child, not just for some children.
Fantastic.
I just wanted to come in with some cultural barriers. I think that we still have some work to do in getting the general public to appreciate children as much as all of us on this call, that we appreciate children, knowing how important they are to investment and how important they are for the future. I also worry about the culture of violence, that children cannot be well educated, cannot enjoy schooling if they are emotionally abused, if they are coming from homes where they are physically abused, where they are not allowed to speak. The Article 12 of the Convention on the Rights of the Child, I think we have a long way in implementing this and fulfilling it properly. We do not let our children speak. And even if they are 3, 4, and 5, and 6, and 7, I know we're looking at the age group 0 to 8, they have a voice, they have an opinion. And I think we have to break those barriers down and make people understand, and persons at all levels and all institutions, the family, the school, the community, that children are so important, and we need to get rid of the violence, get rid of the beating, get rid of the emotional support, the emotional abuse. You look like your father, you work like you're evil like your father. Those kinds of words that hurt, we have to start thinking of treating our children much better. So cultural barriers for me remain very important and really impede the progress in the implementation of Comment 7. Thank you.
Thank you. Talk about inclusivity. We talked about the differently abled. Now we're talking about the social barriers, because we have to address each of those areas to really get to the next level as we continue to improve. All right, Team ECC, welcome Nicole, Brandy, Dr. Lavelle from over there in Clarendon. I see Evelyn Mitchell. We have a number, this ECIs are showing up. And of course, Nicole is helping you out. It is Inclusive Early Childhood Development course.
Always get it wrong, always.
All right.
I told you, Nicole always corrects me. Thank you, Nicole.
We are learning and growing together. All right, so let's delve into we looked at the progress, and in terms of the curricula, Rebecca, we're going to start back with you. How has General Comment 7 influenced early childhood curricula, assessment frameworks, and teacher training in Jamaica and the region? I think we started a bit on that. But
yes, again, it's just General Comment 7 really emphasizes taking a child-centered approach, an age-appropriate approach, and that's what the curriculum tries to do. I mean, the curriculum goes from birth to 5, and it undergoes periodic reviews. The curriculum is play-based. It's developmentally appropriate. It's interactive. You know, there are sections in the curriculum where practitioners are encouraged to reach out to the family and do activities with the family as well. So all of this is very good. It's on paper, right? And then the development officers visit and observe, and there's classroom observation checklists that have been developed to help give the practitioners feedback on their teaching sort of in real time. And it's an iterative process. You know, it's an ongoing learning situation on all sides of that equation. I think that the curriculum may be under another review now. So there's always constant, you know, attention being paid to keep up with changes in education. You know, the whole introduction of digital instruction and AI and the use of AI in teaching and learning is changing the game, you know, faster than we can keep up with. So we're doing the best we can. A lot of our children are given, you know, screens at a very early age. That's not really highly recommended for the children to be looking at screens, you know, age 2 and younger. But they can certainly listen to stories. They can listen to words. They don't have to look at the screen. And there's guidance from different pediatric groups as to what is a good age and how much time a young child should spend looking at a screen. So we're trying to adapt to all of that and make sure that the curriculum reflects that. I want to point out, again, I think the Early Childhood Commission, I don't think Jamaica recognizes this as often as we should or could. And the fact is that Jamaica is actually seen in the international development space as a champion of early childhood. So whenever any of us travel abroad or we go anywhere in the region or even very far away, and we say it's an early childhood education conference, and we say we're from Jamaica, the colleagues in the space, their eyes light up. Oh, Jamaica, you know, there's such wonderful things happening in early childhood in Jamaica, you know, because the concept we take for granted of the ECC is not a concept that is found routinely about being a multi-sectoral agency. The fact that we have the Act, the fact that we have parents and families that send their children out to school, that it's sort of a cultural thing to do, so that we do have this contact with the home and the family pretty from age 3 on up, which is not the case in many other countries. And so it's really an opportunity for us as a nation. And just the standards, the whole concept of the standards, Jamaica is the fact that we have tools like the Child Health Development Passport, which we also take for granted, which is an early screening and development tool and part of the pathway I was speaking about earlier. There's a lot that we're doing that other countries try to learn from and consider best practices. And we always want to keep doing more, and we should, obviously, but we also should reflect on where we have come from and help that direct us even more with even more enthusiasm to where we want to go.
Fantastic. Go ahead and weigh in, Zoya. We're still on early childhood curriculum.
Well, one of the things, okay, perfect. Well, one of the things we understand is because we recognize, just pulling on what Rebecca said, because we have centered the child at the teaching and learning process, or we promote that and we support that. They're looking in terms of assessment. So looking at developmentally appropriate practices as it pertains to assessment. Likewise, many of the practices we employ, we know that, for instance, children have a right to play. That's why our curriculum is play-based. We encourage children, one of the things we do, we encourage teachers and parents to appreciate that children learn naturally through play, so we support that. So that's one of the things we encourage parents to appreciate. It is often not necessarily done, but that's one of the things that we do. Likewise, one of the ways that we support assessment is in a naturalistic session or a naturalistic way, meaning that we are not so we don't early childhood practices are not so much aligned with paper and pencil tests, but rather observation, seeing a child through play, seeing a child as he engages in his or her everyday experiences going about, and observing the child and being able to determine what are the skills that the child has, what are those growth areas. And so those are some of the things. I should also point out that as it pertains to the curriculum, many of the themes that are embedded in the curriculum also support children developing an awareness of self. So, you know, one of the very first themes in the curriculum that speaks about learning about yourself. Who am I? I'm unique. I'm special. I'm a boy. I'm a girl. I'm valued. And teachers teachers build on this. So children can, from very early, from the 3-year-olds, children are able to understand that they have a place and a purpose and they have a voice. And that is some of the ways that we can think about as it pertains to the curriculum.
All right. Audrey, any final points?
Yes, I just want to note, I support all of my sisters have said. I lament the fact that we don't have enough safe spaces for children to play outside of the early childhood institution. And so it worries me back to the point I made about the violence environment in which they exist. And of course, the ethical use of AI. I am worried that as we get more and more into AI, we will reduce the creativity and the innovation of our children. And so I'm hoping that while we get, I'm not saying not to use it ethically, we use it wisely, that we don't allow it to curb the creativity and innovation of our children so that they are always going to AI for everything. So these are some of my concerns as we move in the digital age. Of course, the digital divide is there for us to work to constantly in our faces. We know the remote children living in remote areas have no access or limited access. So we know as we move forward in some areas, some children are still left behind. So again, we have to note those that are most disadvantaged and ensure that they have a place at the table like all the other children. Thank you.
Thank you. And you have started off nicely for the next segment where we're going to be looking at the role of technology and future outlook. Zoya, we're going to hand the virtual microphone right back over to you as you share, lead out this segment. What role does technology play in advancing young children's rights, particularly in digital literacy and remote learning? Audrey started sharing on that, so just go ahead, and then if something else comes up, Audrey, you can share.
Yes, well, I'm sure everyone will be able to add to this. But technology has been a significant advantage in a number of ways to supporting children's rights. But it has also taken away. I'll tell you that in a minute. But one of the ways we can look at is that because we're able to reach a wider audience, we can do a lot more education. So teachers can be more educated, parents can be more educated. Likewise, children can be more educated. So we have resources that are online that we can share with teachers. So, a couple of weeks ago, I was able to share the child rights booklet that the ECC developed with teachers across the Caribbean. These are not even teachers who are physically present in Jamaica. Likewise, putting on sessions, workshops, support systems and services for parents and teachers, that is crucial. We also see in a number of spaces, because of technology, children are also more aware of what their rights are. So they're watching programs on devices, and so children know. Yes, that child rights booklet is now online. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. So that's the one I shared, Rebecca. So it highlights that children really understand their role and their right as children. So you hear children talking about, well, I have a right to play. I want to play, and this is because children are more exposed to to technology. And so it allows us to disseminate information at a faster and more rapid pace, so more persons are able to access the resources. But there's also the issue as it pertains to the negative side or the flip side, which is the unethical use of technology. So as Audrey said, what are some of the ways that we inhibit or we prevent children's actualization of their rights? And so, having conversations with the members of the security forces, and we now see where, children are being victimized, videos are being circulated of children, and this takes away their rights. Likewise, another thing that I strongly believe we need to think about, Rebecca touched on it, is the unfiltered use of technology, which prevents children from going about and playing as they really ought to. We're now using technology as a means to babysit. So as young as a child is, we're putting a gadget in his or her hands, and though we don't have a lot of research that speaks to it, more research is coming about regarding the disadvantages of the young brain on a device and what that does. And so it takes away from children, because if the kind of impact that these devices have, technology has on the developing brain, it therefore stands that later on many of these children are going to encounter challenges if we don't address some of those issues. So they're both positives and negatives. I'll say parents are more educated, the community is more educated, we can get more churches involved, we can get more community organizations on board, we can share resources in a more rapid and seamless way. But at the same time, we also have to think about how we can use technology in ways that are appropriate for children.
Indeed. Right ahead, Audrey, and then Rebecca, if you have something to add, feel free to chime in.
No, I support. I would be nodding all while
Okay.
my sister was speaking, because everything she said is true. The cyberbullying exposure, the cyberbullying, the data privacy issues, having the kids getting all the data out there, the exposure, the unfiltered exposure. We really are violating their rights when we don't have the ethical use of technology, the controlled use of it, to ensure that our children's rights are always protected. So that's my 2 pence.
I'll take it. I agree with what my colleagues are saying, obviously, but I'm going to take it back to the positive side, which is, as Zoya said, technology and the comfort with which many of us now use technology, and this episode and this show is an example of that. And the way teachers have been using WhatsApp to engage parents and children, and the way WhatsApp emerged during the pandemic, particularly in Jamaica, as a way of keeping classes going. And then, of course, the way that we're able to use technology to be more inclusive. So we at UNICEF have been working on a series of accessible digital books with the Ministry of Education, with the Special Education Unit. And we've taken the Literacy 1, 2, 3 series, which was developed by local authors and illustrators and aligned with topics in the grades 1, 2, and 3. But obviously, those topics and those stories are perfectly relevant and suitable for children at the early childhood level. They're picture books. So the picture books now have been made accessible. They're available on UNICEF's Instagram page through the link tree in the bio, in the Instagram handle, or whatever the right phrase is. And also through our learning passport. So we're able to do more teacher training. We're able to do things hybrid. It's much more cost effective. It's more flexible for the teachers. You see higher rates of completion of the trainings versus when they had to travel to and from locations, and it's better for their work-life balance. There's a lot more asynchronous courses happening. The Jamaica Teaching Council works with the Early Childhood Commission on this. The accessible digital textbooks is just the beginning. We've signed another treaty, which is called the Treaty of Marrakesh, which says that we will do our best to make sure that our educational content is inclusive. So now our publishers need to be looking at not only digitizing, but when you're digitizing, that you're digitizing accessibly. So you're using universal design for learning, and you're putting content that describes the images on the page. You're creating features that allow you to to turn on a voice. You can see the words light up. You're using fonts that are suitable if you're dyslexic. You can get an image description. And AI is completely changing that game. So 2 years and very quickly. So we started that journey 2 years ago, and I want to big up Book Fusion here in this space, because Book Fusion is a Jamaican company that has been doing a lot of work with our educational material, and Book Fusion had the knowledge, the know-how to do all of these conversions. And not only did they do it for Jamaica, but they did it for 3 other Spanish-speaking countries in the region. So, and Book Fusion has a library on the Ministry of Education site, which has a lot of books. It's like a library. Any parent could go on and just download those books on and offline. You download it and you can access it offline. Same with the accessible digital books. Same with the content on the Learning Passport. And now AI is changing that so that we can create these books in really short periods of time and then fine tune them. So we don't have to. The only thing we're not able to do yet, I'm sure AI is going to figure it out, is how to put in the sign language interpretation. So in the series that we've done, we do have sign language interpretation that you can turn on or off, and you see the person signing. But AI has the current AI format doesn't allow for that, but I'm sure it's coming, right? So that's a game changer in terms of how we're going to be able to develop content, and how teachers are using AI and to develop lesson plans and to grade. They can write, what is the right word of terminology? They can, the way they do the prompt, they can have the AI help them do their marking, which saves them time and gives them more time to think about hopefully to think about connecting one-on-one with their students and their families. So
lots of possibilities. We just have to manage it responsibly, and we are having the same conversations, and I'm happy to see it taking place. We have had this conversation in the CPFSA have shared, and interestingly, we had the senior medical social worker from Karen and Sharon last week on the same thing, and I was smiling and I was like, Early Childhood Commission would be happy to hear this, that play is being recommended, play therapy is being recommended in healing our children who unfortunately have been exposed to abuse at such a tender age. So the conversations are taking place, and we want to ensure that our parents are well informed to take advantage of the opportunities that are available. All right, so we're talking about AI, Rebecca, and we're going to continue along that trend. Any other area, any other emerging trends and challenges that will shape advocacy specifically for children's rights over the next decade? We're looking futuristic now. And emerging trends and challenges that will shape advocacy for children's rights over the next decade.
Well,
are you talking AI or are you talking generally?
In general. Yeah.
Oh, in general. Oh, well, I think technology. We spent a lot of time on technology. Did you call me? I think I had a disconnect for a while, so I wasn't sure if you called me or someone else.
No, that's all right. We give Rebecca a little to catch her breath.
Oh, okay. All right. I think I was losing connectivity for a minute. Yes, I would say the technology is going to shape the way we can advocate. As Rebecca said, we can now reach more persons online. During COVID, we never stopped holding our Caribbean Child Research Conference, which I must do a little PR on. We have an annual Caribbean Child Research Conference that discusses and examines the progress made in the adherence to children's rights in the Caribbean. And during COVID, we were online, so we were able to let the children have their voices heard, and we were able to advocate for improvement in adherence to children's rights. So I think technology is very key in the promotion of and advocates for children and early childhood education. I also worry about, though, I know I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but when I think of migration and barrel children and how children are left behind and the younger ones are left behind, and the issue of parenting, and the more people migrate to go and look for work overseas, the more our children will be exposed to poor parenting, to violence circumstances. So these are two of the trends that I worry about as we try to think about advocacy. And of course, the cultural barrier I spoke about earlier, which I have not seen broken down yet, where we allow children to speak. We have to find a way to ensure that children advocate for themselves. So we can't always speak for them. Let them speak. Let me see more of children advisory boards. I know that CPFSA has one. I think early childhood. I think children's advocates, they have one. So we have to develop that kind of trend where children's voices are more heard, and they are not too small. 6 to 8, they can still have their little child rights club in schools. They can still advocate for themselves. They can say, I want to be heard. If you see them at the conference, they are writing poems, they are writing essays for us and telling us how they feel. They draw about how they feel about children's rights. So I think the trend is for us to open up more technology, train our parents, look at what's happened with migration and the children left behind, focus on them quite a bit, and ensure that our children are at all levels and all disabilities are given an opportunity to speak for themselves. So I'll stop here. I have something else, but I'll let the others go on.
Zoya, are you going next, or Rebecca?
No, well, I just want to say that technology holds a lot of promise, but it has to be done in a way that is ethical. We know the promise that technology has. Technology has leveled the playing field in a number of ways for a number of children. Now that a number of communities now have free access, free Wi-Fi. Free Wi-Fi means that more children have access to the kinds of technologies and resources that they otherwise would have not had access to. But it has to be done in a controlled way. And if we're not careful, children's rights could be further placed at a disadvantage. So it really just speaks to us. So all of the ways, Rebecca spoke about a number of them. How do we ensure that our children are using the resources in a child-appropriate way? How do we ensure that our children are protected while they're using these resources? Understanding and appreciating that these devices and these resources are not, even though they may be labeled as child-friendly, we have to be careful so we can appreciate that. So it is for us as adults or for responsible caregivers to ensure that if we're using the technology and we're supporting and we're trying to get our children to get the best, so they can all fulfill their rights, we also have to be mindful that as adults, we have an obligation to protect children while they're using these technologies. And as we advance and as we build out and we're using more of this in a number of different ways for teaching and learning, for counseling for children, just as what Audrey said, for counseling sessions for children, catering to their physical, psychosocial, socio-emotional needs, as well as cognitive needs. We also need to think that technology holds a lot of promise, but because it also holds a lot of positive promise, if we're not careful, it can also be to the disadvantage of many children. That's what I would say.
Okay, Rebecca?
I think when you asked the question, I thought about technology, but I think one of the main challenges that will face countries like Jamaica, which I think it was Audrey who mentioned that we're classified as an upper middle income country in the development space. I don't know if it was Audrey or Zoya who said that, but we are, and that's not a great classification when funding is funding models are changing, right? So in this new world order that we're now in for the next however long we're in it, the support that Jamaica received from various different groups is shifting, is changing. So we're now all trying to figure out what we're going to do next, right? So it also means that we also need to be more efficient in our own spending and in our own allocation of our own resources. So how can we find cost efficiencies in the spend that we already have to reallocate? So how can we do more results-based budgeting and perhaps be uncover more efficiencies that can free up funding that could be allocated more strategically? So UNICEF had done with the World Bank a few years ago a public expenditure review of on education, and that report is on UNICEF's website. But it also pointed at one of the core recommendations of it, which was picked up by the Education Transformation Commission, was that we should be doing more of our budget allocation in a progressive way than a regressive way, which means that's a fancy way of saying that we should be putting more funding at the early childhood section, early childhood sector, rather than at the tertiary sector. And to some extent, we're seeing that happening. We're seeing greater allocation in the last few budget cycles within education to early childhood. So that's a positive, but we need to be able to maintain that going forward. And we're going to have to be creative and strategic in the ways that we do that.
I just want to add that,
Go ahead.
I must speak on behalf of the University of the West Indies. I think one of the ways.
Yes. It's difficult. It's difficult.
I know UNICEF has been well represented. But in terms of, as Rebecca was speaking, I was thinking about how can we help with what's happening now, the current global situation, which is shifting the focus on what we call non-discrimination. So we know now that we have to think through how we continue to advocate. And I'm thinking that we have less resources. We have to think of how we can capitalize on that, on the groups of students we have at the university. So one of the ways I think we can use the human capital we have there is that ECC and agencies that need research done, they give us the list. And we have lots of postgraduate students who want research. They don't have any idea what to do. We have the School of Education and we have other departments. They can tell us what it is they want to study, and we will encourage our students. We have the masters, we have the MPhil, and we have the PhD, because we know there are going to be less and less money for research. There's less and less money for advocacy. We have to think of community, of using online advocacy platforms. We have 5 campuses. We have a global campus which reaches 12 countries of CARICOM, and we can go beyond that. Let us become more creative in how we continue the capacity building, because we have a lot of early childhood education programs. I'm sure my colleague will soon give us the list, but we have the certification, we have the diploma, we have the undergrad, we have the postgrad. And so if it's going to be expensive, because I know USAID, for example, was supporting scholarships and training in that area, but we can provide online services, and we can also ensure that we use our platforms, our UWI TV, for example, to advocate. So advocacy, you were saying the challenges we face and the global trend, this global trend that is happening there, I think it presents an opportunity for us to be more creative, to depend less on a particular, I won't say the name, but a particular source of funding, and to become more independent. And we can be, if we think through very carefully how we can navigate this new terrain, so that we become more, show our resilience and become more independent. So the university stands ready to build capacity. We are ready to advocate. We're ready to do research. We're ready to do training. Just give us a call and we shall help you. Thanks.
Fantastic. And Audrey just made my job so much easier in opening this this last segment, as we look at the role that civil society organizations and the media play in strengthening awareness and advocacy for children's rights. So we have started the journey, but we have some ways yet to go. So share with us how civil society organizations and the media can help. Zoya, you want to start the segment?
I can, yes. One of the things that we know about early childhood development and supporting children is that there are a number of entities that have responsibility or contribute to children's total development. There is no one sector that is responsible for early childhood. As Rebecca spoke about the multi-sectoral or cross-sectoral collaboration that drives the ECC. and makes it a unique entity. So it really is about leveraging the kinds of support from the mainline ministries that have responsibility for early childhood, the Ministry of Health, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Social Security, and other ministries in between. So, when we think about it, it's working with our healthcare practitioners for them to be able to support and understand and identify and educate our parents. Likewise, it is our educators or teachers or practitioners in the classroom space, working with parents, supporting parents, promoting child rights, giving children an opportunity to have a voice, to have a say, challenging those social norms that Aldridge spoke about. We know that schools, particularly at the early childhood level, we do a lot of work. I was at a session on Sunday. I gave as a guest speaker, and someone spoke about the fact that it was when she was enrolled at an early childhood institution, the principal made sure that she ate every single day. So the barriers and the challenges children face, schools have a tremendous opportunity to help children overcome some of those barriers. The Ministry of Social Security and Labor, all of those elements working together. Likewise, church organization, non-government organizations, they also play a pivotal role. Churches are the largest owners and operators of early childhood institutions, and so they have a powerful platform on which to promote child rights. So in a number of spaces. So, church organizations have youth fellowships, they have Sunday schools, they have Sabbath schools. Rectors can go on pulpits and share and talk about the importance of these little children who have been entrusted to us, how we can support and make sure that they are protected in the ways that we need to protect them. So it really is leveraging the kinds of the different agents who we have, because there is no one entity that completely provides support, all the support children need. So NGOs such as UNICEF, conferences such as the Child Rights Conference that is put on every year, those are incredible opportunities and platforms. And 20 years, if I may plug your conference, Aldri, it really is a testimony to going across the Caribbean to show that this is 20 years, so 20 different grade groups of children over the years. The first set, they're now adults, perhaps parents themselves. The first children participants of that conference are now parents themselves. And so it's how do we see the opportunity to advocate for children. It could be, when we see something happening, if we see a child who is not in school, a child who is registered but who is not attending school frequently, it means as a neighbor, I can go to my neighbor and say, why is it that your child is not in school? What can I do to support you? Or maybe I can direct you to where you can get resources and supports that you need. So it is looking at all of those things and packaging it nicely to make sure that our children benefit the most.
Indeed, Audrey, and then Rebecca. But before you go, Audrey, Angela, Gail lost sound for a good 4 minutes. Not to worry, Angela, the recording will remain in this space, so you can go back and watch the section that you missed, okay? All right, go ahead, Audrey.
Yes, civil society, I think they play an important role, and they have played an important role. If you think about the Coalition on the Rights of the Child in Jamaica and how much policy advocacy they did. And in fact, I think through them, we were able to get the Child Care and Protection Act and all the different policies that we have seen since then. So civil society organizations are key. We haven't spoken much about monitor and evaluation, but I think they can be watchdogs as to what it is we are doing and how well. So yes, when we make that report to the United Nations, the government says they are doing excellently well. We know the civil society, they are on the ground, they are working with the children and the parents and the teachers, and they know exactly what is happening, and they can come now and tell the true story, I would call it, about what is happening in terms of adherence. One of the things I always worry about is the mental health of caregivers and parents. And I think, and even teachers. because we talk about the children and adhering the rights of the children and all of that. That's fine, and I love them dearly. But through a study we did with CDB, we found that a lot of stress, the parents were experiencing a lot of stress, the caregivers were experiencing a lot of stress. And therefore, we have to think about how we can provide spaces where they can de-stress, where they can meet, they can have a little bit of relaxation. So I think civil society can present an opportunity for them, provide some safe spaces where they can come and feel and not be judged about how they feel and what they are saying. Especially those with disabilities, we found were very stressed, and they were ashamed to say how, they just sometimes just wanted to be alone and not have to get up and look after this child with disability. So let's think about the mental health of our children, the mental health of the caregivers, the teachers, the parents, and provide spaces for them in the community, places where they can go and listen to some music, read a book, just even provide babysitting, so that we take the children from them for an hour or so, and they can go. So these are my thoughts on. And homework centers, I forgot about that. Yeah, homework centers. Civil society can provide homework centers for parents who are not able to support their children at that age. So thanks.
You, excuse me, Rebecca.
Well, just to pick up on what my colleagues have been saying, I mean, I agree with everything they're saying. And like Audrey mentioned earlier, I think, I hope to see the day, maybe before I have my own grandchildren, where we have more playgrounds that can create family memories and that can double as spaces for, mental health and well-being, physical health and well-being, and learning and education, because you can have a homework center in that space as well. And that requires a partnership with civil society or with the Jamaica Constabulary Force that has youth clubs and spaces. There are community centers in some communities. I would love to see a mapping. Maybe this is something the university can help us do, Audrey. We can map where these currently exist and then see where the gaps are and where there are potential spaces on government land. So we can talk about that. But I also want to add that the media is a really important partner in so many different ways, because the media is arguably a very powerful educator, and that can go positively and it can go negatively. And so the more that we work collaboratively with the media to advocate for the voices of our children and for the voices of our parents, our teachers, the better we will all be, right? So we need to find ways to engage more consistently and more strategically with the media and with the whole, the traditional media, as well as the new media, right? Which is social media, newish social media, right? So, yeah, it's a work in progress. And I think the ECC has its Professional Development Institute coming up. That's always a time when they are in the news, they are in the media. And so that's a key advocacy point, tipping point, right? So we have to use them more strategically when they come around.
The media must use more success stories and not always
I agree.
focus on the disastrous cases. We need to encourage them to put out those success stories. There are lots of good stories going on and best practices that we can emulate, and they need to advertise those,
I agree.
All right. So we have a long list of them in the Sorrento Resource Connector Reservoir, because that's basically what we focus on in this space. So we're known in Clarendon as the space for positivity. That's what we focus on. So we have a lot of stories. We had last week on our youth forum, we had a success story coming out of the Police Youth Club, where you have the Police Youth Club member, now inspector of police, and we had persons reaching out to find out how they can be a part of. Persons sharing live that they were able to get their certificate, a nursing certificate and other styling certification, just by being a part of the youth club. I love this. Sharon Seymour is saying that we can all be advocates for children who are at early childhood level. That's it. It all starts with me, with the woman, the man in the mirror. All right. Thank you for that, Sharon. That's very important that we recognize that we each can play a part in being a part of the change that we want to see in this space. All right, we are a little over the 1 hour mark, but really insightful, really incredibly insightful discussion here. I've certainly learned a whole lot about General Comment 7 and the rights of young children in general. But before we wrap up, I'd like to invite our panelists to share one key takeaway. I know you have a whole lot, but one key takeaway for our audience. If there's one thing that you want them to remember after they sign off, and not to worry, someone shared that they were in class, so they're just connecting. Don't worry. While you're doing your household chores on the weekend, you can start from episode 1 and just listen to the replays. All right. So we are starting with Zoya, then Rebecca, then Audrey gonna take it home. Zoya, what's your takeaway?
My final words are: we all have a role to play. We can't leave it to others. We all have a role to play. We just need to think about what's best for children, understand what's best for children, and if we don't know, reach out. There's always a lot of help out there. It's just that we don't know where to reach out to. So, forums such as this or forums such as this provide that information. But it's really just about making sure that we all recognize that every person has a role to play.
Rebecca?
Wow, I that's so good. I mean, that's so simple and straightforward. I mean, I think one of the things I always remind teachers, practitioners when I speak with them is that yes, parents are our children's first teachers, and so the more that we can, especially at the early childhood level, the more that we can work with parents or caregivers, encourage them to participate regularly in their children's schooling life, it's a win-win for everyone. So what can we do creatively to strengthen that home school community connection, so that that saying that it takes a village actually becomes a reality.
Indeed. Audrey?
Yes. Well, my favorite article is Article 3, that best interest of the child. And I think in anything we do, when we are implementing a policy, when we are thinking about a new law, whatever it is, a program, we ask ourselves, is this in the best interest of all our children? And if we can answer that properly, and if it says the answer is yes, then I think we would have won. It would be a win-win situation. So for me, always work with the best interest of the child at the foundation of what you do. Thank you.
Well said. Well said. And Nicole Morgan is helping me thank our panelists here, presenters, for sharing your experience and knowledge. And for those who are live, if you would like to hear more from these amazing women, please register now and attend PDI 2025 at the Montego Bay Convention Center. What better way to spend your week than near the seashore, where you can relax and unwind and be a part of a space that's nurturing you, so when you get back into the classroom, you can pour from a full and not an empty cup. Amazing. Thank you so much, ladies. Professors, Professor Zoya Kincaid Clark, Professor Audrey Henry Lee, and Dr. Rebecca Toratello. Thank you so much for sharing virtual space with us here. I'm sure it will not be the last time. So, and for you who are able to join us live, those who are watching the replay, thank you so much for being here with us. Remember, the conversation doesn't stop here. You have a role to play in sharing so that others are aware, so that we can all be a part of the advocacy process for our children. Special thanks to our partners at the Early Childhood Commission, amazing partners. And most importantly, let me thank you again, our audience, for engaging with us. I mean, the comments were popping right through, the different institutions from across the island sharing, and some really awesome thoughts are there endorsing the importance of technology and what we can do with technology amidst the different challenges. Thank you. And if you operate a business, you know someone who operates a business who would love to be a part of what we're doing here. We go throughout the year every third Thursday. We are always looking forward to sponsorship support, so that and that means that you're part of this positive movement that's taking place to ensure that our early childhood educators, our parents, are armed with the information that they need to improve on what the early childhood team is doing. I can't. Sometimes I wonder how it's done with the small team that's at the Early Childhood Commission and the magnanimous things that they have been doing over the years. And they need our support in order to keep that going. So let me thank you again. Stay connected with us. Follow Serenity Resource Connector for more live discussions like these. And be sure to share this conversation. Can't ask enough using hashtag child rights. And I will see you next time. Have yourself a fantastic rest of the night.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good night.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Very excellent host. Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night.
A Child Rights Series 2025 Live Forum, Hear the Voices of Our Children, We Have Rights Too, is brought to you on third Tuesdays at 8 p.m. in collaboration with the Early Childhood Commission. Visit our website at www.serenityresourceconnector.com and subscribe to receive our weekly blog post. Join us again on Thursday at 8 p.m. for Community Corner. Thank you for watching.